Donald Trump and Republicans are coming for your Social Security and also destroying the country, and Martin O'Malley is sounding the alarm. Our guest today, former city councilor, former mayor, former governor, presidential candidate, Social Security administrator, and I know there's probably about 10 more things on the list, is former Governor Martin O'Malley. And before we hop into a governor, just a few quick housekeeping things for our listeners. One, remember, we have brand new merch on the MD Dems store, so go to store.mddems.org to get your merch today. And if you use the code podcast, you'll get a discount on it as well. Two other really big things. One, we are trying to contest every seat here in Maryland in the 2026 election, and we need your help. Not only do we want you to run for office, we want you to share with your network in case they want to run for office. So if you go to mddems.org/run, you can let us know you're interested in running, and we're going to get you connected with folks that can make sure you find the seat that works for you. And then finally, Chair Pittman is crisscrossing the state, going to every county and Baltimore City for his talkback tour so he can hear directly from voters and members of the Democratic Party about what you want to see moving forward. So go to mddems.org/tour and you'll find the date closest to you. And if you don't see a date for your county, I promise you it's getting scheduled. You can sign up to get notified as soon as we schedule your county. So that's enough housekeeping. I want to talk about what is going on in this country with former Governor Martin O'Malley. So first, Governor, thank you for being here.
No, my pleasure. If I'd known that we were wearing hoodies, I would have brought my hoodie.
Hey, I mean, the one benefit, I'll say, not the one of the benefits of moving over from a government office to here is I get to be casual every day. It's the best. As long as I have a campaign t-shirt, I'm good to go. And so you have a real job. I get to wear hoodies all day.
All right. Well, have flag pin will travel.
So, Governor, let's talk first just about the state of the country. As someone who has been in leadership positions when things have been great and in leadership positions when things have been really difficult, how are you viewing the state of the country right now?
Well, we're in an unprecedented crisis. It's a constitutional crisis of epic proportions. We've gone about 250 years without ever electing an authoritarian leader, but now we've done it twice. And in the second time, Donald Trump and his ilk have set about dismantling the institutions, the programs, the underpinnings of the republic with a speed that is stunning. They clearly had planned. They clearly decided to go even further than they knew that the courts and the law would allow. And so this is a group that has no regard for not only the law or regulations or the civil service and professional people that run our government, but they have an utter disrespect and disregard for human lives, including the 300,000 people they've condemned to starvation deaths in the world by taking food that we had already purchased and then using our tax dollars to burn it, thereby condemning those 300,000 people to starvation deaths. So there are no words that, become hyperbole when talking about this crew. This is clearly a threat to the republic, unlike any that we've seen since the Civil War.
Yeah. So on that spectrum, and this is where I think some of the Democratic Party is a bit divided, is that spectrum of like 5-alarm fire, this is a crisis, this is authoritarianism, which is where I'm sitting, to this is bad, but we'll get through it. We'll have an election in 3 years. We just have to wait it out. Like, where are you on that spectrum?
Oh, it's definitely a 5-alarm fire.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
I talked to some younger people. They said, yeah, but when you were our age, didn't it seem at the time that this was like the worst it's ever been?
It's an interesting.
No. It's
an interesting question that they're thinking about it that way and looking at it that way.
Yeah, if they've only grown up with knowing Donald Trump, you can understand that question. But no, this is do or die time for the republic.
Yeah, so let's talk some of the big things that are going on in the republic right now. Troops are in the streets. We've seen it in Washington, D.C. We know the president is announcing other cities. What's your take on what's going on with the troops in the street, and like how would you be reacting if you were in leadership?
Yeah, well, they're clearly going as far as they can. Once again, using our men and women of our armed forces as toys, as pawns, totally disrespecting the uniform of the United States by having these National Guard ripped away from their families for no good reason, doing mulching, picking up trash. And it seems that the common denominator in him sending in the troops is for a city to be majority African American. It doesn't have anything really to do with restoring public safety. I mean, my goodness, thanks to Governor Moore and thanks to Mayor Scott and the hardworking men and women of the Baltimore City Police Department who've sacrificed greatly, homicides right now, 3/4 of this calendar year, are headed to a 55-year low in Baltimore. So this is a stunt. It plays well among people who fear people of color in his base, and to them, it seems like a reasonable thing. It's an old trope of putting down a slave rebellion by sending in the troops, and that's what he's doing. It has nothing to do with public safety. It has everything to do with performative politics and playing to his base.
What would you do if you were let's say you were, I know you're the mayor of Baltimore, but I'm going to take Baltimore specifically out of it because I'm sure you don't want to necessarily opine on like Mayor Scott should do X. If you were a mayor of Cincinnati,
well,
what would you be doing?
We could talk about Detroit, too, which is headed to a 55-year low and is a majority African-American city. We could talk about New Orleans, which is headed to a 55-year low and an African-American city. I would be doing as Governor Moore and Mayor Scott are doing and pushing back hard on this. This is not about public safety. Baltimore is headed for a 55-year low in homicides. That should give all of us encouragement. And we need to push back in a very fact-based way and not go down in the mud and wrestle with the pig, but point out the fact that this doesn't have anything to do with public safety. Public safety, because of Governor Moore's mantra of collaboration, cooperation, partnership with local government, homicides are headed to a 55-year low, and that's a pretty big achievement for public safety. We don't need troops in Baltimore. What we need is a president of the United States who obeys the law and respects the Constitution, and including safeguards against deploying our own armed forces against United States citizens, which is what he seems to be wanting to do and wanting to normalize.
So let's talk. One of the few leverage points I think Democrats have coming up is these budget negotiations. What would you be advising congressional Democrats to be, thinking about as they enter these negotiations?
Oh, wow. And now I'm reflexing to my most recent tour of public duty, which was Commissioner of Social Security, where I was cautioned again and again by the Biden administration not to make opinions about policy and tactics and strategy. I believe that the Democrats should be bare-knuckled, that they should fight, and they should use as much as their leverage as possible. I don't think the usual instinct that we have of not allowing the government to shut down, I don't think that serves us well right now. Donald Trump is speedily, fast as lightning, with at a blitzkrieg pace, shutting down our federal government by decapitating the inspector general's offices throughout our federal government, by driving the senior executive service out of our federal government, professional civil servants like the ones at Social Security who have made sure that every month for 90 years they've never missed a payment and getting the right amount to the right person at the right time. So I think the Democratic Party needs to play hardball, and I think the public will be with them, particularly if they draw lines in the sand around Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Unless Donald Trump restores those programs, restores health care to the people that he's about to deny it to, and restores the staffing necessary to operate Social Security, I think the Democrats will have popular support for, shutting down the government if Donald Trump does not relent in his drive to shut it down in his own way with so much damage to the American people.
Yeah, and I'd like to remind the public that Republicans control the White House, the House, and the Senate. So if the government shuts down, it's their fault. Just remember that when all of your Republican friends lie to you and tell you differently. Let me ask you about one more thing, and I'm going to ask you to put your conspiracy theory hat on.
Huh.
What is the deal with the Epstein files and why Mike Johnson, James Comer, and Donald Trump are so hell bent on not releasing them. Like, I just don't understand. And I feel like I'm pretty good at going down conspiracy theory rabbit holes, but like, you're a former government official. I'm sure you've heard a billion conspiracy theories, so you might be better at it than me. Go down the rabbit hole. Like, why are they so hell bent on this?
I really don't know. I think what they created, I've been mostly focused on Social Security. I mean, that's
Makes
the
sense.
hill. For me, that's my bunker hill. That's where I'm stationed, and that's what I intend to defend, along with the other hardworking men and women who have been driven from that agency. And in terms of the Epstein file, I mean, it's pretty obvious. I mean, this guy is a serial groper at the very least, has been convicted, at least in civil courts, of assaults on women, and he hung out with Jeffrey Epstein, signed his birthday card, and laughed, chuckle, chuckle. He likes women on the young side. Most of us would call them girls. So I don't know. No, I think they created. I think they created this snake of conspiracy
Yep.
in the minds of a gullible, fear-filled base. And now that snake is eating its own tail when they find that, instead of finding, high-ranking Democrats drinking children's blood at pizza parlors, instead they find that Donald Trump hangs with one of the most notorious sex traffickers of underage women that's ever been brought to trial in the nation.
Well, this is a pretty natural transition to Social Security then. Let's talk Social Security, because that, like you said, that's your bread and butter. That is what you are going to talk about for the next 14 months. You'll find every tree stump you can to shout from. You'll go to every house. You'll go to every state. I think you said when we talked, you recently were in California, Iowa, Nebraska, Florida. Like, you're making the rounds
I've
here.
probably done about 50 town halls, and I've lost sight of how many, or lost track of how many teletown halls I've done, mostly with Democratic members of Congress, but occasionally with state parties.
Nice. So let's talk about your time at Social Security, and then I want to talk about a program you launched called Win Back Your Country. But let's first talk just Social Security. You took the job of Social Security Administrator, which is not always seen as that easy of a job. Why would you say yes to that?
Because it needed to be done. And then when you get a call from the White House and they ask you to drop what you're doing and help them right a ship that was heading in the wrong direction. And, when I got that call from near Attendon, minding my own business in the international food aisle of my local giant grocery store on York Road, had to wake up in the morning still rubbing my eyes and getting my first coffee. And I said to Katie, I had the strangest dream last night that I was minding my own business, picking up Valentine's dinner from my honey, and got this call from the White House asking me to run and turn around Social Security. Katie said, not a dream. You told me that when you came home with the groceries. When Neera Tanden laid it out to me and all of the customer service metrics that were going in the wrong direction, including the truth that people were waiting for an hour and a half, 8 million a month on the 1-800 number. She said, look, full disclosure, everything in terms of customer service is going in the wrong direction and has been for 10 years because of Republicans ratcheting down and reducing staffing at the Social Security Administration. Talk about a self-inflicted wound. I mean, this agency used to operate 10 years ago at just 1.2% overhead for the $1.4 trillion in benefits that are paid out. If you compare that to a private insurance company, Allstate operates at 19% overhead. Liberty Mutual, Liberty Bibberty, operates at 23% overhead. So,
I'm paying some of that 23%. I have Liberty, so
and she told me, and full disclosure, some might call it a fully engulfed dumpster fire in terms of customer service, not their fault, but she said, but the president knows how you love dumpster fires. And I said, I'd be honored. Absolutely. Because I know they're my neighbors at Social Security. It's the second largest employer in the Baltimore metro area, or at least it was until DOJ started whacking and hacking and with its chainsaw, cutting out probably 1,000 people up there at Woodlawn. And thanks to the dedicated men and women there and applying a new way of governing, which is performance management, which we did when I had the honor to serve as governor, setting an agile cadence of every 2 weeks, almost like a football game, calling huddles every 2 weeks, having 2-week deadlines to get things done. They were able to get every metric in terms of customer service, except for one, moving in a far better direction. That wait time on the 1-800 number, which on average was 42 and a half minutes when I was confirmed to lead the agency, we were able to reduce to 12.8 minutes by the end of my service and the election there. And some of the things that we hit, like timeliness of effectuating retiree benefits, they got to a 10-year high. The speed with which they were adjudicating appeals from disability determinations, they got that down to a 25-year best in terms of the speediness of rendering a decision. All of that went out the window when DOGE came in, started doing mass layoffs of entire offices, the entire Office of Customer Service Transformation. They brought in an A-plus player, said, "You're gone today." Once they installed their puppet commissioner, said, "You're gone today, get a cardboard box, tell your other 83 people they're gone too, it's their last day." Then they brought in another A player, the head of the Office of Civil Rights and Equal Opportunity. Joe, you know where this one's headed.
I do.
And they told her, "You're fired today for cause. Tell all 163 people, put their stuff in cardboard boxes, today's their last day." And then after creating this spectacle on the parking lot there at the headquarters in Woodlawn, where we've been headquartered since 1962, the very next day they announced joyous news that they would pay people with our money to quit if they would quit right now. People that were retirement eligible, the most knowledgeable people in the agency and experience, they paid them for the entire rest of the calendar year. You want to talk about waste and fraud and abuse of staff? There's your waste, fraud, and abuse. If you were not retirement eligible, they would give you cash payments if you would leave right now and don't let the door hit your ass on the way out. And that is how Social Security has now lost more staff in a shorter period of time than ever before in the 90-year history of making every payment on time for 90 years.
That's insane. So that's a perfect pivot point to win back your country. So this is an organization that you founded, and one of the chief focuses is making sure people understand what's happening with Social Security because, and maybe I'm just making a logical leap here, but your view is that if people really knew what was happening to their Social Security, you would see people in the streets with pitchforks, a bunch of 70 and 80-year-olds with pitchforks because their Social Security and the service that they're getting at the agency is just absolutely cratering. And who knows if we'll be able to maintain it to the point where are people going to continue to get the checks that they've earned, that they deserve? I don't know. But talk to me a little bit about win your country back and the thoughts behind it.
Yeah, win back our country is a repurposing of my leadership back. I have, after the DNC race and after that offering, I thought my duty had been discharged and I was going to be, reassuming, that highest title in the republic, that of citizen. But then they came after Social Security with such a viciousness that a number of us who have left the agency started pushing back. So the journalism by the New York Times, Washington Post, Wall Street Journal, CNN Digital, and others has been really, really good.
Yeah.
And there have been lots of experienced people who have left Social Security who have served as assets and resources, subject matter experts to the print reporters. And so the public has been alerted. Joe, I saw an article in April that said for all of the horrible things that Donald Trump has done in just the first, part of this year, the number one polling negative for Donald Trump is messing with Social Security. And that's before he's even interrupted benefits. At first, when they started doing this, I thought that maybe it was just sort of arrogance or that Silicon Valley bro culture. People in the agency and who had left the agency said they kept hearing the phrase, we need to clear the decks. We need to scrape it clean. And so I've come to the conclusion that they are uh, intentionally doing these things in order to manufacture an emergency that will allow them not only to privatize the operations of Social Security, but get their hands on the only big surplus that exists anywhere in the federal government. Social Security is the only agency that runs a $2.6 trillion
Yeah.
surplus because Congress back in the 1980s in the last adjustment saw that people of my generation, the baby boomers, were coming. And so the surplus was built up intentionally to cover a portion of those years where what people pay in a given year needs to be augmented, supplemented
Yeah.
to make up, uh, to make up the difference. And that's what that surplus is intended for. But I truly have come to believe, as President Biden said in his first speech as a full-fledged citizen back in February, I think, or was it March, that they're trying to wreck its reputation. They're trying to wreck its customer service in order to turn enough Americans against this needed and trusted agency so then they can rob it
Yeah.
of the dollars that are in that trust fund surplus.
I mean, it wouldn't be the first smash and grab job for many of these cabinet secretaries and administrators. We've seen things going on at EPA that seem to benefit a lot of really rich folks, a lot of rollbacks of rules. We've seen things at Treasury. We've seen things in foreign policy. Like, kind of seems like the only people who are getting exactly what they want are incredibly rich.
Yeah, they've taken taken self-dealing to an all new level.
So when it comes to your organization, your work, and some of the polling you just talked about, how do you think candidates should be using this data in their races? Ideally, Democratic candidates.
Yeah, well, I've probably done, as I said, I think I might have already said, probably about 50 town halls across the country and a lot of teletown halls. In fact, when I did one with Marilyn Strickland, who's a former mayor and congresswoman from Washington State, she sent me a text afterwards and said there were 26,000 people on that. And they stayed for the full hour.
Wow.
And I texted back. I said, Congresswoman, was there a typo in that? Did you mean 2,600? And she said, no, 26,000, 3 zeros. So I was in Florida. Remember those special elections that we had, Florida 1st and Florida 6th? And our two candidates down there, we did town halls in both of those places, and their candidates attended both of them. Big crowds, and they told me that the two issues they heard the most in the final stretch leading up to the elections were veterans benefits and Social Security. So candidates need to, sometimes as Democrats, we think people understand and take for granted that, of course, being the party of FDR, that we're for Social Security. So I don't understand why. But it's almost as if, as Democrats, we get bored with saying we are the party that will protect Social Security. Right. I understand from polling that was done by a large senior organization during the general election that in their 40 years of polling, Donald Trump was the first candidate, Republican nominee, to fight us to even on the question of who do you trust most on Social Security. We need to learn from that mistake, and all of our candidates should be talking about Social Security. I was just out in Nebraska. Awesome candidate there running in the so-called blue bubble, for those of you that follow presidential politics. You'll know that they apportion their electoral districts differently, and one of them out there is the blue bubble, a district that's very competitive, where most of the Democrats in the state live. And John Kavanaugh is running for Congress there. And he is leaning full-throated into defending Social Security as his issue in that race. And for good reason. I think really the key to Democrats winning back the House are two words: Social Security. And it affects so many people. We need to shake ourselves out of that Democratic thing where we assume that people take for granted we're the party that defends it. Here in Maryland, in fact, Andy Harris, who is a Republican representing the 1st District. Andy Harris was one of those Republicans on the House Appropriations Committee who on July 10th, 2024, voted to cut Social Security in the Appropriations Committee. It's a roll call vote by $452 million. Almost $500 million of staffing that he voted to cut from Social Security. These are benefits that people have earned their whole lives, and they also paid in for the customer service necessary to access those benefits. And so whether it's Andy Harris or any of the other Republicans, including the chair, Chairman Cole, or the chair of the subcommittee, Chairman Adderholt, these Republican candidates who voted to cut Social Security, or the ones who are remaining silent, like Hal Rogers in Eastern Kentucky, where I'll be traveling at the end of next week for a town hall with Ned Pillersdorf, who is running for Congress as a Democrat. They need to be held accountable for the fact that they are either voting to cut Social Security, complicitous in letting Donald Trump and the Doge Boys cut Social Security, or they're remaining silent in the face of the greatest threat that Social Security's faced in 90 years.
And on your website, which make sure you give folks the website so we can also drop it in the show notes, you have a really great slide deck that has some information that I think is pretty compelling on just how bad some of these cuts are going to be, and also ways to get involved.
Yeah, one of the, in a time of dark clouds, one of the silver linings I've encountered out there is the people that come to these town halls about Social Security. They don't just come to emote. Yeah. They don't come to scream and shout. They come to be equipped with the truth about what's happening to Social Security so they can return to their own tables of democracy at their workplace or at their, around their own family dinner table, where they have to confront their brother-in-law who only listens to the Fox. And so there's been a lot of big lies that were told about Social Security. Again, back to what I see is their wrecking of its customer service and wrecking of its reputation. Yeah. And the way they've attempted to wreck its reputation is, number one, you talked about those slides, which show that by the end of the Biden administration, every customer service metric was moving in a better direction. And no member of Congress questioned whether those numbers were real, unlike now, because they saw the numbers of people calling in to their own office declining when it came to Social Security problems. But the other thing they've been doing, great practitioners of the big lie, is that they've been telling a lot of big lies about Social Security. Shall we tick off a few of the top ones?
Please.
And you can go on the website, which is called Win Back Our Country, or if you do O'Malley and Social Security to the Google, it'll get you there. And so big lie number one is that Social Security is riddled with waste, fraud, and abuse. Everything's always about waste, fraud, and abuse. They're cutting 7,000 people from Social Security because of waste, fraud, and abuse. Poppycock. The truth is, year after year, Social Security, unlike our Defense Department, always got a clean audit, whether it was from Grant Thornton or when I was there, Ernst & Young, because they're very good at keeping track of data. And if they weren't, they wouldn't have an unbroken 90-year record of making monthly payments and recording all of our earnings, yours and mine, since our first summer job. The other bit, and so the incidence of improper payments, which is a combination of fraud, people ripping us off, pretending to be your grandmother when they're not, and trying to shift their direct deposit, or mistakes that we make in overpaying somebody, particularly when people are drawing Social Security and have a earnings cap. Those things can be dynamic, as with supplemental security income program, Title 16 as well, that, they have to, it can be,
there's nuances to it.
It's a dynamic. It's always changing for everybody. I mean, but when it comes to the improper payments and fraud, it is 0.3%. 0.3%. And yes, Elon Musk will go on the Fox and boldface lie and say 40% of the calls to Social Security are fraudsters stealing your direct deposits all day.
My favorite part is when they whether it's about Social Security or Baltimore City Public Schools or whatever, reporters come out and say internal audits show missing money. It's like, yeah, the audit found it and they fixed it. It was their own audit. They're telling you what they fixed.
Yeah, they were clever. They did away with all of the inspector generals.
Yeah.
Who were used to be very protected civil servants who would
Yeah.
be able to call balls and strikes. But in the latest audit, here's another big lie that they told, that there's a zombie apocalypse of 12 million dead people, which would be about the population of Illinois, receiving checks from Social Security long after they're dead. They said, 150 years old, Donald Trump looked at the members of Congress and said
it in a State of the Union.
In State of the Union or the non-State of the Union, whatever that was.
Yeah.
He said there are some people that are 300 years old, which would have meant that they came here on the Ark and the Dove for the founding of Maryland. Absolutely not true. It's looked at year in and year out by the Inspector General and by auditors. And the latest report is hyperlinked on that website that you mentioned of mine after the plain language rebuttal. March 23rd was when that Inspector General's report came out. Minuscule number. Some of it unavoidable if somebody passes in the same week that their check's supposed to go out. And then we still get it back in probate. But no, there's not a zombie apocalypse with 12 million people roaming the planet with, checks spewing out of their cadaverous pockets. It doesn't happen. We get automatically alerted every time Maryland or any other state in the union records a death certificate. We get electronically notified, or Social Security, I'm still saying we, gets notified. The third big lie is that illegal immigrants are milking the system dry and bankrupting Social Security. Not true. In point of fact, illegal immigrants, so-called, undocumented people working to feed their families here in the United States are prohibited by law from ever earning any Social Security benefits, nor can they even earn credits to eventually earn their way into Social Security like the rest of us do after 10 years of work. But get this, they pay $26 billion into Social Security that they'll never see a dime of for the benefit of all of us. And finally, the other big lies are on there as well, is this notion that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme and going bankrupt. Can I take a second to unpack that at the risk of splaining? Social Security is not a Ponzi scheme. Ponzi schemes don't last for 90 years. Nor do they get clean audits every year from Ernst & Young or Grant Thornton or anyone else. Social Security is a pay-as-you-go program. It's not like a savings account. It is a generational promise and a promise from this republic with the full faith and credit backing up that promise. This is the way it works. In the year that I was there, Social Security had paid into it from people working in the economy, $1.3 trillion.
Okay.
From FICA, the payroll tax.
I do. When I ran a campaign and then I did my budget, I forgot to put FICA in there. I had to go back and redo the budget. That was not great.
Yeah. So for 90 years, employers pay half, and employees pay half. So Social Security had paid into it from people working in the economy, paid into it $1.3 trillion into Social Security. That same year, Social Security paid out to active beneficiaries, people with disabilities who were given an allowance, or retirees, paid out $1.4 trillion. So where did the difference between the $1.3 trillion and the $1.4 trillion come from during these baby boomer years of us baby boomers moving through our retirement years? That $100 billion difference came from that large Social Security surplus, Social Security Trust Fund surplus. Now, I know that it gets a lot of eyeballs and it's a lot of clickbait to say Social Security is going bankrupt by 2033. That's not what they're talking about. They're talking about the surplus being drawn down quicker than anticipated in the 1980s.
Right.
Because of income inequality, by the way. But Social Security is a pay-as-you-go program. So even if Congress failed to make another adjustment, as they do every 30 years or so, Social Security would still have dollars paid into it sufficient to pay 83% of benefits. Some people have said, well, what's the cure to make sure it can pay 100%? Well, bills introduced by Democrats, both in the Senate and the House, say the cure to that is wealthier people shouldn't enjoy a cap, a windfall on what they pay into Social Security once they reach $170,000. So right now we have the unfairness, what most Americans would say is an unfairness,
Yeah.
that somebody working as a janitor in the Trump Towers pays in out of her or his paycheck all year for the entire year into Social Security. But the owner of Trump Towers stops paying Yun once he reaches 170,000 in income. So this is a solvable problem, just like the customer service, the long-term financial health of Social Security's ability to pay 100% is a solvable problem. And guess what else they receive, Joe? Social Security doesn't contribute one dime to the federal deficit.
Right.
Because it's a pay-as-you-go program.
Yep.
It actually lends money to the federal government, but it does not contribute a dime to the federal deficit.
Let me transition to the state of the Democratic Party. As a true blue Democrat, which I know you are, I could ask you a million questions, but I want to ask you, as someone who wins a lot of campaigns for office, you have every candidate in the 2026 cycle and all of their consultants and staff locked in a room. They can't go anywhere, and they have to listen to you, and they have to do the one thing you tell them to do. What's the one thing you tell them to do? And it can't be only talk about Social Security.
Well, I would say that the one thing to do is to constantly bring it back to the kitchen table issues.
I had a feeling you were going to say that.
That caused us to lose to the couch.
I mean, you have a pretty famous campaign where you literally brought a kitchen table around.
Yeah, when I ran for governor.
Yeah.
We would carry that.
Do you still have that table, by the way?
Where's that table?
Is it in storage or?
I don't know what we did with that table. You sure it's not around here?
It might be. If you figure out where it is, text me, and we will let the audience know.
It has a sticker from every county in Maryland on it. It was round. It had foldable flaps. But we would carry that around as if it were the state seal of Maryland. And we'd carry it out on stage ahead of time. It's all about the kitchen table issues. Let me give you a hopeful story. The Labour Party in England got shellacked a few years ago in a cycle. And they, too, lost about 7% of people either to the couch or to the other guys. Their equivalent of the blue wall, though their colors are the opposite of ours, totally fell. And what they said after that election was they spoke directly to those people who they called the hero voters and the hero workers, because without them, our economy doesn't function, even though they do some of the lower paying and most demanding, physically demanding jobs. They said to the hero voters, hey, we apologize. We failed to speak directly to your kitchen table concerns. We're going to change our party so that we can change our country and deliver better for you and for your kids in the future you're trying to build for them through your hard work. And for the next 2 years, they kept bringing back the issues to those kitchen table things. Now, Donald Trump, with the flurry of turds flying off his authoritarian fan, is very good at distracting us from those things. There's been a lot more attention given in the last couple of months to the Epstein files, for example, than there has been to the threat to Social Security or people's health care. So, I would say to the Democrats, it's all about the kitchen table issues, and that breaks down in a message triangle to costs of living, Social Security, and healthcare.
So I think that was the first time flurry of turds has been used on the podcast. So appreciate that. That was great.
Thank you. I'm here all week.
I'm going to use that a lot. Let me ask you this final question before we end with a 90-second game here. I don't get to talk to former governors often. That's got to be a cool job. Was it just like the coolest thing to be a governor?
It was a great honor, and we were able to help so many people and accomplish things that many of us at the outset weren't sure we would be able to accomplish. So it was a great honor. Serving as mayor of Baltimore was also a great honor, and in some ways a lot more enjoyable and more more gratifying because you were directly among and with people all the time. In a whole state,
Yeah.
it's not as easy to be any place in your jurisdiction
Right.
within 15 minutes. So I enjoyed that contact with people, oftentimes really, really poor people asking for life and death important things for their families for which they were willing to work.
Yeah.
But when you're governor of a state like Maryland, you're kind of forced to spend a disproportionate amount of time with really, really wealthy people asking you for crazy ass shit for which they're not even willing to pay. But we did great things. I mean, partly because of the tough decisions we made.
Yeah.
And I'm of the opinion that, your popularity as a leader is something to be used in service to people. So my goal was never to keep, to be, the popular kid on
You
campus.
bank political capital to spend it.
Right. And so we made a lot of tough decisions, but we tackled the structural deficit that Ehrlich had left to us really early. And we also did other things that expanded healthcare coverage.
Seems like a pattern of Republican governors leaving Democratic governors structural deficits.
Larry Hogan left a huge mess. Most corrupt governor we've had in modern times. The only governor to make himself a multimillionaire while in office as an active real estate broker. It was appalling and disgusting, and he was never really called to task for it. But we extended healthcare coverage to 350,000 Marylanders.
Yeah.
And when Obamacare was passed, we were able to double that. So 700,000 people we extended healthcare coverage to, driving violent crime to a 35-year low and turning around a 300-year decline in the health of the waters of the Chesapeake Bay in cooperation with 5 other states and our federal government. So, and along the way, doing some other really important things for people, like marriage equality, repealing the death penalty, first state in the nation to pass a living wage. And I could go on. Yeah, in-state DREAM Act, holding for 4 years in a row, only state in the nation to do this. So 0%, not a penny's increase to in-state college tuition.
I was pretty new to Maryland when I started working on like the DREAM Act campaign, as well as marriage equality and death penalty. And I think you were at one of the rallies firing up us door knockers. So
yeah, good.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Well, I think we're in a very strong position now as a state. We have a great governor in Wes Moore, and we can't take that for granted as Democrats. I recall well that Bob Ehrlich came back for a rematch.
Yep.
He was more popular than I was, even when I beat him. The first time by 7 points and the second time by 14, 2 touchdowns. But about 40 days out from that second reelect, listen to me, Marylanders, about 40 days out, we were statistically tied with Ehrlich. So as Democrats, we can't take for granted that we have a great governor in Wes Moore. We need to do everything we can. I applaud you, Joe, and everybody in the Maryland Democratic Party, Chairman Pittman, for challenging us to do more, to run for office, to register people to vote. And we need to call people to task like Andy Harris, who in Congress votes to cut Social Security. We're a state that needs to lead the nation right now. Our country's never needed us more.
Yeah. I hear Bob Ehrlich might be looking to come back to the governor's office also. You hearing that rumor?
I haven't heard that rumor.
Well, let's keep that rumor out there because he's certainly got some Twitter fingers out there, and his wife has also got some Twitter fingers out there.
Yeah, so. They most people in our
former
state,
first lady,
most people in our state under 30 would have a hard time even telling you who Bob Ehrlich is or what he did.
Cashing out some of those lobbyist checks might be pretty difficult too. So let me ask one. Give me a 10-second answer on this one because I know we're running low on time. You're part of an incredibly small club of people, legitimate people, who have run for president. That's an insane choice to make. How did you?
Thank you for your editorial of
anyone that wants to run for president. That's an insane thing, isn't it? Just by definition.
I came, given what we had accomplished as a state, I found myself invited to a lot of JJ dinners, and that allows you to listen. Yeah. It's not so much what you say at those party dinners all across the country. It's what people say to you afterwards. And I came to the conclusion as much as I can feel something in my political gut, that our party was going to lose in the general election,
Yeah.
whether we nominated either of the top two frontrunners in that year of 2016. And having come to that conclusion, I couldn't look myself in the mirror and not try. So I tried, proud of what we put forward, some of the things that made it into the Democratic Party platform that year on climate change, on, comprehensive gun safety legislation, which was another thing we passed in Maryland when no other state would after Sandy Hook, or could after Sandy Hook. Also, immigration reform, death penalty made it into the party platform for the first time that year. It's fallen out since, but maybe we get it back. So I gave it my very best, but I could not open, that necessary seam of oxygen in that cave in order to, get the lift necessary to make a run at the nomination. But we hung in there until people were allowed to vote in Iowa.
If there's one thing that's true about Democratic politics in 2025 is it all goes back to 2016. So
does it?
Everything goes back to 2016.
I thought it all went back to Reagan, but I'm older than you.
Yes, that's true. All right, so let's end with a game here. We usually ask our guests to play a quick game. We're calling this one Hot Seat, and we're only doing 90 seconds. So if we don't get through all this in 90 seconds, we're going to do what we can in 90.
I reserve the right to phone a friend if it's about pop culture.
That's fair. I won't give you any pop culture then.
All right.
So I'm going to just ask a question. You have to answer it as fast as you possibly can. If you do any let me think about it, I'm going to skip and go to the next question because we're forcing answers. Is that fair?
Cool.
All right. 90 seconds starting now. Best bill you've ever passed.
Excuse me?
Best bill you've ever passed.
Ooh, I have several of them. I can't pick one. I love them each. Comprehensive gun safety legislation, repeal of the death penalty, offshore wind, climate action, marriage equality, living wage, and the list goes on and on.
What's the one thing that you wish people talked more about from any of your time in office that doesn't get the love you think it should?
Is this when you skip to the
we can skip. Toughest negotiator you've ever gone against?
Toughest negotiator I've ever gone against? Firefighters.
You're making a band of other elected leaders. Who is joining your band?
Ooh, this actually happened once. Tim Kaine on the harmonica, Janet Napolitano on the tambourine, and Brian Schweitzer on the drums.
You get to jam with any musician, living or dead. Who are you picking?
Ooh, Bruce Springsteen.
You have 3 words to describe Stephen Miller. Go.
Swarmy, repugnant, cretin.
What's the craziest thing someone ever yelled at you on the campaign trail?
Craziest thing anybody ever yelled at me. What's the rating? Is this a G-rated or
no?
G-rated?
We can say whatever you want.
Gosh, there's so many. I guess in the 4th of July parade in Dundalk, Ehrlich had people staged to shout at me, "Hey, O'Malley, it's not Cinco de Mayo. What are you doing here?"
Oh, Jesus. All right. And then last one, who are some of the compelling candidates that you've run into as you've traveled the country that you think people should be on people's radar?
Oh, wow. Many. I agree. I sometimes disagree with James Carville on tactics and strategy, but I think he's right when he talks about what a strong team of candidates we have all across the country. They're, our own outstanding governor, Wes Moore, and many others. I mentioned John Kavanaugh running for Congress out in Nebraska. There are many.
Awesome. Governor O'Malley, thank you for joining Burn the Talking Points, and I appreciate you actually burning the talking points and also using the term flurry of turds, because that one's sticking for sure. Folks, thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you go to Governor O'Malley's website. We'll drop it in the show notes. You can get involved and also get the slide deck there and share with everyone just how devastating these Social Security cuts are. And don't forget, we want you to run for office. Go to mddems.org/run. Governor O'Malley.
And call your congresspeople, call your senators, call your congresspeople. Even if you have a Democratic congressperson, let them know that you appreciate their fighting for Social Security. Tell them you want them to fight for Social Security. And in the case of Andy Harris, tell him that you want him to promise never again to cut Social Security by the $452 million that he voted to cut it by in a roll call vote in appropriations on July 10th, 2024.
Governor O'Malley, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Jeff.